Welcome back to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. It's week 2 of college hoops. We have got plenty in the book to discuss, so we're going to do that. I'm your host this week, Jim Root, joined by Kai McEwen and Matthew Cox, both looking ready to rock from their typical home podcasting or home court podcasting studios. Matthew, you were touring daycares this morning. You're ready to rock. Kai, you're also ready to rock.
Yes.
Matt, start with you. You feeling good? A lot of good ball over the past week. Your Dookie Blue Devils took an L, but that's okay.
Yeah, Jen, they look good. The daycares look good as well, so I feel good about that.
Big time.
And the ball looks great. So, check, and check. I think 3 for 3 to start us off this morning. I am phenomenal. Champions Classic was great. I am going to push the Michigan State removal narrative that's been making some headway on Twitter.
I was wondering if we were going to get to that. Yeah,
I think we will. I think it's time. It's time for Tommy Izzo to tag out.
Very sad. I'm doing well as well, Jim. I'm excited to talk basketball and the Champions Classic and all things relative to that ilk.
Yeah, we're going to do that. That is the plan here. We've got our typical episode, a little Roots Roundup, catching up news and notes. We've saw that. Get some big games. We're going to hit on anything that maybe we don't hit in thoughts. If we have more detailed thoughts coming, we'll gloss over some game results, but we will mention them there. Then we'll get our three-man thoughts, our own musings, just kind of whatever tickled our fancy this week. And then a big game preview. Friday has quite a slate of games, good teams versus good teams, even some great teams versus great teams. Excited for that. Avoiding the college football Saturday slate. Smart scheduling. Shocking for the college basketball world to actually do it that way.
We're figuring it out.
Excited about that. Yes. And then we have a couple reviews at the end. So we will hit those. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and checking those out. And you are able to do that on Apple Podcasts. That's where we pull the reviews from. We love a 5-star. If you don't want to give a 5-star, hey, just don't even click on reviews. It's fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Shout out to Jay Pitty for the opening tunes. The intro gets us hyped to talk basketball. Subscribe to the pod, as we mentioned, and subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can be watching this live. We have a couple people in the chat this morning. Thursday morning as we were recording this, really excited to see that. Always fun to get a little interaction going, some current thoughts as we go through our topics. And join the Discord. Trilly Donovan's Burner Ball. Get in there. A lot of great discussion. I continue to learn things from people in there. So get in there. There's a lot to find out, a lot to discuss, just good chatter. People win bets every day. I feel like, Kai, that's just the masses are printing money in Discord right now.
Yes, you'd be dumb not to join. You'd be losing money not joining Discord.
Yeah, come on. Let it pay for itself.
It's very refreshing, Jim, when you have a community filtered by a monthly subscription, albeit as affordable as it is, folks. Wink, wink. Please join today. Just very healthy, constructive chatter. It very easily weeds out any sort of spammy or body type of, sometimes on our best bet show on Saturday, we'll have a guy kind of parachute in with some, hey, what are you doing here? But it's just good quality, consistent discussion. Join us, folks. Your thoughts are welcome. Your presence is welcome. And your subscription is obviously welcome as well.
Get in there. Yes, plenty of good content in there. The film room chat with Kevin Sweeney and Eric Fawcett. Trilly's scoops continue to be spot on. He's nailing recruits before they even commit. Sad news for our Mizzou Tigers, hint, hint. But that's okay. Guys, that's it for our intro. Let's get into Roots Roundup. Roots Roundup is our news and notes section. Before we get into it, Matt, a quick shout out to a key sponsor of ours. CBB Analytics continues to be a wonderful resource for us, even into the season post previews.
That's right, Jim. The holy grail of college basketball statistics, the best 30,000 foot view, all the way down to the 0 foot view. Summary statistics, team player level statistics contextualized by all situation, who you played, when you played them, where you played them. That includes D1, D2, and D3 fellows as well. Again, great for coaches as you continue to start your scouting for potential portal entrance into next season. Also awesome from a fan perspective, just trying to see what your new team, your new coach, or just even the same team, same coach looks like this year from a shot chart, shot diet, as us college basketball snobs like to say. Checking down, I've checked out some of the Champions Classic shot charts, which I will be using to inform some of my takes later. But please join today, folks. The promo code is WEAVE, WEAVE, $40 off your subscription when you sign up. And coaches, assistants, please DM us about the access to the pro tier. Thank you, Nick. Speaking with Nick actually tomorrow. So excited to talk to him. I know he's busy behind the scenes.
Today, right?
Yes,
Today.
today,
Sorry,
Matt. I
Thursday.
really hope you know that. Okay,
We
good.
used to
There we
podcast
go.
on Thursday or Wednesday. Now it is Thursday. Nick, I'll talk
This
to you today.
three-man weave, boys. We are so locked in. It is the
There
season.
it
I never
is.
know what day it is. So that's especially once until we get to conference play, the day of the week doesn't really matter. It's just there's games. That's all that matters.
I suck at
All right,
schedule management. I get really bad during the season. It goes from a 2 to a 0 on a scale of 1 to 10.
let's get
It's
you a
kind of
Google
tough.
Calendar, my man. Let's get you a GCal. It's great. It's really helpful. All right, first up, key headline here, fellas. Todd Golden, coach at Florida, still as we record this and is coaching on the sidelines of games, but there's an ongoing investigation, Title IX investigation. Even Florida can't comment on it, given the nature of it. We're not going to comment on it either. We just want to bring it to your attention. We have no idea what the results will come of it. Kind of have to trust Florida and the investigation going on there and them to figure out the real details, the truth behind it all. But not great stuff. If it's true, it's not. I don't know. We'll just leave it there. Todd Golden remains the coach of Florida, but there is an ongoing investigation into his status as the head basketball coach for the Gators. Let's move on. Recruiting news. Arkansas, John Calipari continues to be a force on the recruiting trail with the heft of the NIL war chest behind him that the Razorbacks have. Five-star combo guard Malik Thomas committed to Arkansas, potentially the next one and done for John Calipari now at Arkansas. And then we have a plethora of four stars: Michigan, Auburn, Washington, Kansas, and SMU, all reeling in guys between 24 and 75 in the top 100. Trey McKinney to Michigan, combo guard, top 25 guy. Caden Magwood, Auburn. JJ Mandaquit, point guard to Washington. Samus Calderon to Kansas. Nigel Walls to SMU. There, you're caught up on recruiting. We want to talk basketball. We're not going to dwell on that too much during the season. Other random news and notes before we move into We've Saw That. Congratulations to Mr. Bill Self, 591. 591. That was the chant in the locker room after Kansas took down Michigan State. Bill Self now is the all-time winningest coach in KU basketball history. He passed Fog Allen. Did either of you catch his quote response to being told this? No, he just goes, just means I'm old and I've had a lot of good players. All right. Attaboy, Bill.
Sure.
But
yes.
591 wins at Kansas. Pretty darn good.
How humble.
Respect to him. And then Greg McDermott, all-time winningest coach at Creighton. So all those, there's like buzz that he would want to leave for Ohio State and all that, but
Yeah,
relatively impressive too to accomplish that. Kai, would you like to wax poetic about your favorite childhood coach, Bill Self?
My favorite childhood coach was Roy Williams, Jim, actually,
Okay, fair.
not Bill Self, though he did slightly overlap the fandom just a little bit by like 1 or 2 years. So
Okay.
Good job. He's a good coach. Hooray.
I just loved Tulsa hoops as a kid, Kai. So, or
Yeah,
was he
you're
Kent
big
State?
No,
Yeah,
he's
Tulsa.
Tulsa. He's Tulsa.
Tulsa. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
For some reason I get that confused.
And
All right.
Illinois.
That one I did remember.
Yeah.
I did recall the Illinois tenure for Mr. Self, but he's won a lot of basketball games. Regardless to say, he's a terrific coach. Speaking of that, let's get into We Saw That, guys. Right off the top, Kansas had probably the biggest week in the entire country. Knocked off North Carolina in a barn burner at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, 92-89, and then on Tuesday take down Sparty in the Champions Classic in Atlanta, 77-69. A game that was hideous for the first 15, even the entire first half. Just disgusting basketball. It got a little bit to it in the second half. Kai, what do we think of Kansas? We've kind of gone back and forth on whether they're number one in the country. They have looked good enough thus far.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some warts, but Hunter Dickinson is a rock in the middle, and again, they have Mr. Self on the sideline.
Yeah, they have arguably the best coach in the country. Hunter Dickinson is one of the best players in the country. Whatever you think about him, he is. Yeah, I agree, Jim. You watch that Kansas-Michigan State game, and then you watch Duke-Kentucky, and I understand, one game was missing shots, one game wasn't for the first half at least, and Duke and Kentucky looked way better than Kansas, in my opinion. I just think there's some flaws, like you said, some warts with Kansas. I'm not totally buying the full breadth of the roster, we'll say, Matthew. Obviously, Dickinson's been great, Harris is always rock solid at the point. He's not hitting 40% of his threes this season thus far. He hasn't made a three yet, I don't think, actually. Adams is doing fine, but it just doesn't feel like there's enough firepower, maybe I'll say. They've beaten two great teams, of course. They actually dipped in KenPom one spot from the preseason ranking, which is interesting, down to 8 from 7. But I don't think they're the best team in the country at all.
This is one of a broader part of a thought I have coming up here.
Hey, we can gloss over this then, Matt. Let's say
no. I just want to quickly pepper in. I think it's a fair. Just to you two, is Kansas better or worse than last season?
Hey, they're better. I mean,
I think they're better too, but it's not like an emphatic yes, right? I think we all kind of like, yeah, better. We all like kind of wishy-washy.
Well, they're emphatically better than where they were without McCullough and Dickinson.
Without McCullough, it was sort of a house of cards. But I think the loss of McCullough, especially when he was healthy, before like the lack of depth caught up to them late in the year, like that version we saw at the Champ Classic versus what we just watched, those two teams are a lot closer than what I thought they would be, given all the hype and just the pieces that they added and how excited Self was and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, the weird thing with Kansas, Floyd Badunga is so much fun. He just dunks everything. He's like a human pogo stick, but it's like hard to play him with Dickinson and Adams. Like you need those guys on the court, and they've been crucial to Kansas for years. But whenever Badunga gets out there, I get a little more excited because I know something crazy could happen. That guy just flies around. They've got to figure out their wing defense, guard defense. It's Harris and then kind of a bunch of civs like Storr, Griffin, Mayo aren't super keeping guys in front of them. Maybe a healthy Shaquille Moore will help with that. He's a pretty darn good perimeter defender, but there's some things for Bill Self to work with, some teaching points, we'll call it. I'm sure he's happy to have those. You don't want a team to look perfect at this point in the year. And then just that UNC game was great. So I have to echo that one. That one was really back and forth. Outstanding basketball at the Phog. The nightcap in the Champions Classic. Yes, Duke falls to Kentucky 77-62. I'll get out ahead of it, Matt. Duke didn't make jumpers. They didn't make threes. But hey, neither did Michigan State in the opener. They were 3 for 24 from 3 and fell by 8. So if Duke's going to use that excuse, I'm sure Michigan State can too. Matthew, where do you land on Con Knippel after this game? 5 for 20. Cooper Flagg obviously rocks. That first the Knippel question, and then also the rotation. Where are you at with the Duke rotation, leaving out some of the 5-star freshmen, the senior wings? I have a lot of I want your thoughts on your Blue Devils.
It was a little tight. The injuries of Mon and James really changed the tide of that game. Like,
I think you call Malawach
Mon.
Okay.
Mon.
Okay. All right.
I'm getting you guys hip with the Duke behind the scenes lingo of the nicknames of players. It's an improvement over I used to call them by their first name, like I knew them. So now I just go with the stupid nickname. So, but yes, Mon, Jim, while raw, just so important to Duke's defense. Like just his activity as present at the rim was just, you could tell it was like game changing. And then with James's sort of physical slashing ability, defensive presence, and you're right, I think they have more depth to work with. I don't know why Shar didn't use it. I still think Duke was the most impressive team for 30 minutes of anyone on Champions Classic night. I still think they've looked the best of any team in the country for 30 minutes. Take away the last 10 minutes when Kentucky made that run. I thought Duke was a little sloppy in the half court. They lost some shooters. Ton of credit to Kentucky, but I think you saw all the pieces for Duke. Even though Knippel played poorly, he didn't shoot well. Like you can see the eye test. It's like, okay, yeah, that guy has game. He can get off, get by guys, defends really well. I mean, Cooper, obviously people are going to make a bunch of stuff on the last 2 possessions where he turned it over, but like clearly that guy can play. And then the Caleb Foster, Ty Proctor, quasi point guard. That's my question mark for this team. Like, I know they're going to basically give the keys to Foster as the point guard and move Proctor off the ball. But like, if those two guys are just sort of Jekyll and Hyde all year, that's going to limit the ceiling. But if James is healthy and Mon is healthy, the defense is awesome, all the way awesome. And that gives them a much higher floor than I think Duke's even had in recent years.
I have one small foible or bone to pick before Kai goes here. You said they've looked the best in the country for 30 minutes. I'm sorry, Auburn has looked the best in the country.
That's fair. Yes, I agree.
Houston. I just had to get in there. Okay, Kai, go ahead.
That was more impressive for sure. I just think the eye test that didn't Duke wow you more than Auburn. I got more wow factor from Duke than
I was going to say Kentucky. I like to me, like in my head, if you'd have not shown the score, I would have said Duke won the game. Like that's
right.
They looked like holy crap good, and they were up by 10 early, and they're hitting shots, and then it kind of fell off the rails. Shots weren't falling. I think a couple things. Number one, look, John Shire, are we pointing fingers a little bit here? Because I know Flag turned it over, but those last two possessions were horrible. The plan was Flag ISO with not a lot of space to work. I mean, there's got to be some set, right?
Out of the timeout, ISO, they ran like guys across the floor to clear out a side, but they cleared out his left hand out of a timeout.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that? You have a whole timeout to set that up. Shout out to Eric Fawcett in the Discord for pointing that out.
Point that out.
Yeah.
Like, just why is that not designed to his right hand? I don't get it.
Don't love that.
I thought Shire coached a great game actually up until the last 4 or 5 minutes. He should have used his bench more, but I think like they attacked, like we were, everyone who watches Kentucky basketball knows Kobe Bray can't guard his shadow, and we were attacking him at will. I thought we got the mismatches we won. I was like, okay, Shire, very clearly some intent, some purpose.
Did you hear the they versus we? He said they and then switched to we.
They.
I like that. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
I was encouraged by Shire's performance outside of the last 2 minutes, but you're right. We're like, what are we doing? And then the lack of depth usage is going to come back, I think, to bite this team.
I don't know. I just think Shire happens to have the most talent in the country, and that kind of that kind of makes up for his lack. Kentucky, though, better than the sum of its parts. Like the sum of the parts better than the individuals. Whatever the saying is, like that team is a team. And we said Pope put together a lot of guys that fit during the offseason. 100%. They rock because they all play off each other. Anybody can score 20 points a night. They're going to be very, very good the whole year.
Yeah, I love the assembly of pieces where you can throw out the offensive lineup, or when they need to stop late, you can throw out the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, Lamont Butler, a lockdown wing in Otega Owe, the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in the CAA and Amari Williams. It's like, yeah, they can kind of mold their approach to what the situation calls for. Obviously, they can shoot. Real quick, Matt, are you mad about them using Spalding balls? Everybody's whining about this at the
This is the most ridiculous gripe.
Yeah, I'm not saying that both teams were using the same ball, so it's not like Duke can't use as an excuse. As a fan of the game and like as a questioner of logic, I don't get why we do this though. This is stupid. Yes, I can be upset about it. We should all be upset about it, just like in the tournament or the conference tournaments when we change balls all of a sudden and you can just tell it looks different. Like, why are we doing that? Let's stop doing that. Not why Duke lost, obviously, but stupid.
Money,
why are we
sponsorships. These guys play with different balls their entire lives. This is not a good excuse. A basketball's a basketball.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Kai. It's not like, I've only played with a Wilson my whole life. I'm screwed if you put a Spalding in my hands. Like, figure it out.
I might be. Wilson's here.
I prefer Wilson, but I played the Spalding in high school and I love those then. You get used to what you get used to, whatever. Okay, Auburn beat Houston 74-69. This is on Saturday. Kai, we were watching Mizzou for a lot of this, so we had to kind of catch up and watch a little bit after the fact. But man, two Titans, really impressive performance from Auburn to win after their flight snafu with having to turn around and leave two people behind. But you played Janai Broome 30 minutes. Things look good. Tahad Pettiford, the freshman, looked really good, gave them a giant spark. I still think Auburn is awesome. I thought they were better than Alabama to start the year. I continue to think that.
I think they're awesome. I'd probably put them 2. I still think Houston's the best team. Javier Francis, not healthy. That didn't help. Houston was controlling this game for quite a bit. Got up double digits in the second half. Still impressive by Auburn. I mean, they're right there with Houston. Yeah, these two are absolutely title contenders. Maybe the 2 favorites still to win the title.
Agree. Houston, I think, will be better. Right now, Auburn's better. That's where I'm at on that. And a lot of that is due because Houston's vaunted front line is a little bit brittle, just banged up with injuries. So,
yep. Also, a DNP in that game for Mercy Miller for Houston, but then he was awesome against Louisiana Wednesday night. I think he might be somebody that gives their perimeter even higher ceiling. Uzan, of course, still also getting acclimated, but yeah, I love those two teams. They are my 1 and 2 in the country, Kai. So there you go.
I think I described Mercy Miller as one of Master P's sons that actually deserves to play D1 college basketball.
Where's Hersey at this year? Isn't Hersey playing for?
I don't know.
I know.
He's still on the.
It was more a dig towards Lil Romeo because that guy should never have been on USC's roster.
You're a Bow Wow guy. Player. You always were a Bow Wow guy.
Yeah.
Yep. The other neutral site game on Saturday, Baylor bounced back and knocked off Arkansas. Maddie, you mentioned it, I believe, in the Discord. Baylor went back to the old zone and kind of frustrated Arkansas there, kept them a little bit on the perimeter. Baylor followed that up with a demolition of Sam Houston State.
Yeah,
Can we
very
say the Bears are
impressive.
back, Matthew? We're not panicking about the Gonzaga performance anymore.
No, no, not at all. Early in the year, all these again, I read so little into a lot of these very early. Like it's not even like late November, it's still truly early November. I think we learned I'm looking for do I see some Jimmys and Joes, some pieces, and do I see some, modicum of intent of how you want to play? That's great. Otherwise, I'm not gonna put much
Well,
stock in the
wait a
results.
second. You were doing a victory lap after the Gonzaga game, saying you're right about Baylor, about ranking them lower than everybody
I
else.
am still right about that. I don't think they're going to be a top five, even top 10 team, but they're still very good. There's a lot of really good teams this year. That's one of my
There
thoughts.
are.
A lot of very, very
There
good
are.
teams, but a lot of flawed, very, very, very good teams.
I
Baylor's one
love
of
it.
those teams.
Hey, big weekend performance for a team called the Bears, Kai, and it was
Uh,
Baylor, not Chicago.
not my Chicago Bears.
There you go. Yeah.
Flus.
Tennessee
Flus.
beat Louisville by 20.
Yeah.
They basically took them to the woodshed.
Ooh.
At Louisville was not overly competitive. Louisville missed a lot of jumpers here too. You could say, but Tennessee's defense was partially responsible, and Tennessee completely dominated the lane. I tweeted it, but Louisville had just had no plan B. Like, uh-oh, jumpers aren't falling. We could take more jumpers. There's no alternative with that offense. They're going to have super volatile outcomes. I heard CJ Moore say it on the field of 68. He's like, they're going to look unbelievable some nights when the jumpers are going in,
Mm.
and others they'll look terrible. Kai, any vast takeaways from this game?
No, not real. Tennessee was like, oh, this is Tennessee that we've seen the last couple of years
Yeah.
for a lot of the stretches of the game. The defense was smothering. Meshack is just a one man wrecking machine. Hey, Chaz Lanier, slight apologies because he is translating much better, at least so far, than I expected at this level. Now, all of Louisville's guys are basically mid major guys, but I think Lanier, his shot is beautiful. I really think he is going to be a great offensive weapon for them. Don't think he's going to be amazing defensively, but man, if Ziegler and Meshack are going to play like that defensively, I think they're going to be
Yeah.
okay. Now, Louisville did miss. I mean, they shot 39 threes. That's called getting maybe a little bit too in love with the three, Matthew. That is their game. I think they'll have better nights, but they're still clearly getting chemistry down, getting the pieces to fit a little bit.
Yeah, I think for all of us who are pumping the Louisville hype train, myself being one of the ringleaders of that, I think this was very clearly oh, here's what Louisville could look like against real men in real competition. They can't get every shot they want. They had no prayer of getting anything easy inside. I mean, they had to shoot threes, and yes, they will make a higher percentage. Usually, I don't think they were like super high quality threes, even the ones that they got. And they just looked like they were kind of bullied. And I think I don't know, I'm not going to say it's a concern all of a sudden, but it was like, oh, yeah, I forgot that all the Louisville hype has been rooted in like them playing middle to bad teams. And I need to kind of reset.
6 for 21 from two against
That's
Tennessee.
it's like, what?
No chance. No chance. Not getting volume shots and not making the ones they got. So yeah.
And only
Remains to
13
be seen.
offensive rebounds, Jim, on how many missed shots? I mean,
And
that's,
long
yeah,
shots
you could
too.
tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Work in progress there for sure. Okay, nothing in terms of standout individual performances. Ryan Kalkbrenner has set the bar entirely too high. You can't follow up the 49-point performance he had. Quickly in the bad loss section, the Big East. Ooh, tough early season for them. Butler lost at home to Austin P. We've already mentioned Villanova's issues. They ended up losing at St. Joe's. I'm not calling that quite a bad loss, but it does matter. And then Seton Hall lost at home to Fordham. That's the one that's really concerning. Followed it up with a neutral site loss to Hofstra. Shout out to DePaul and Georgetown for not being mentioned in this section yet, Kai. That's good.
Yeah, I do have a thought on Georgetown teaser. But
All
yes, Big East. Whew, I mean, the bottom half is looking not great. Not great. Providence looks horrible too, Jim.
Yes, they do. They are
Yeesh.
mentioned in one of my thoughts. So yeah, it's dicey. It looks like a very big divide between the haves and the have-nots in the Big East right now. Is DePaul a have? That's the question we're going to try to
Yes.
figure out as the season goes on.
I don't know.
Georgia Tech got whacked by North Florida. Kai has a longer thought on the Ospreys, so we're not going to dwell on that one too much. But Georgia Tech, I just don't see it this year. They're a year away. Air Force has now lost at home to North Alabama in a blowout, and LIU, they may be dragging down the Mountain West along with potentially San Jose State. We'll see. That's going to be tough for that league to get 6 bids if the bottom is that terrible. Santa Clara, a darling of this pod, at least early. Then they lost to Arizona State, and then they lost at home to North Dakota State in OT last night, despite a 9-point lead with 3 minutes left. Just gagged it away. Kai, I think we can already say that at-large hopes are kind of dead for the Broncos.
At large is probably gone. Also, North Dakota State. This is a good lesson of never watch games because every time I watch North Dakota State, it's the worst looking basketball team I've ever seen in my entire life. And then when you don't watch them, they somehow beat Santa Clara in overtime by some magic, miracle, wizardry spell. I don't know how the heck they beat this team and then lost to Bakersfield like 2 nights before. Doesn't make any sense. That's college basketball, I suppose, Matthew.
I hate this team. I'm done betting on North Dakota State either way. It's just a Jekyll and Hyde type team. And yeah, I'm still mad at Santa Clara. I really bummed out at Santa Clara.
Yep. Thought they were awesome. Yeah.
Disappointed.
I still think they're really good, but
they are,
tough
but
losses.
Just not taking care of business there. Yeah, I have Illinois State on my no bet list. I might add North Dakota State with you guys. Just clearly no consistency from a night to night basis for them. It's that's hard to wager on. George Mason lost at the buzzer to Central Michigan. That's going to be a Q4 home loss. Man, you can't do this, A10. If you want those multiple bids, your upper half or expected to be upper half teams like St. Joe's and George Mason. St. Joe's lost to Central Connecticut State at home. You can't be dropping these games. The wins in the conference have to mean something, and boy, they don't. They don't when you lose these.
Yeah, this was shocking, Jim. Central Michigan lost to Stony Brook. I believe it's kind of the same like MTE-ish style. George Mason beat Stony Brook by 40 points.
Yeah.
How do you lose this game, George Mason? This is just
it's
nuts.
baffling. They another like you look at the 3-point shooting, and certainly that's part of it, but you've got to be able to overcome that if you're George Mason. Central Michigan almost they gave Marquette a heck of a game at Marquette too. Maddie, I know you're fire up chips. They look pretty good early.
Feisty. Mr. Barbie told me most talented teams ever had, Kai.
So, no way.
And
coaches never say that.
9 times out of 9 times, I don't believe a coach when he says that. But I like when he gets off to a nice little start. And I'm like, maybe that son of a bitch was right. Ryan Looney every year. Idaho State, most talent I've ever had this year, Matt. I'm like, okay, we'll see. And sure enough, I mean, they look good this year too. Yeah. Maybe we should listen to coaches.
Every year, it's the best year you've ever, the most talent they've ever had. But yeah, St. Joe's mentioned that loss to Central Connecticut. They turned around and beat Nova, so we know that the Billy Lang roller coaster continues in Philly. It's just if you think they're going to play well, think again. If you think they're going to finally bounce back or play poorly, then that's when they show up. Okay, that is it for We've Saw That. It's time for 3-Man Thoughts, and that section is sponsored by our lovely friends at Home Field. Kai, should I kick it to you?
Yeah, Home Field Apparel. I love talking about Home Field because I wear their shirts constantly. They're the best clothing apparel company in the world because they focus on colleges, football, basketball, every sport you can think of. They got baseball up there. They just have actually just school names. It is really the best place to go if you want cool shirts about your college team or anybody else's college team. They got UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs up there. They got Slippery Rock University. They got Colorado School of Mines, all these unique schools. Oh, Delta State, the Fighting Okra. Home Field does it all. They are selling hats now. They are selling bomber jackets. They are selling joggers. It's really taking over the entire world, Home Field Apparel, from their little home in Indianapolis. If you never checked them out, please do, homefieldapparel.com. You can use our promo code 3MW at checkout, get 15% off your first purchase. There's also some 3-Man Weave gear on there, Whisper. That link can be found, I think on our actual website that's now kind of defunct. But if you want the link, just DM us. We'll send it to you. It's kind of hidden. But
yeah, it is.
Homefieldapparel.com. Check them out. 3MW is the promo code for 15% off.
Kai, it's like an off-menu item at In-N-Out Burger.
It is.
3-Man Weave gear.
Animal sauce.
Off menu. Yes, there you go. Matthew, you are the mystery man with not sharing your thoughts in the outline. So I'm gonna go to you first for 3-Man thoughts and see what you had to say for us.
Yeah, I had 2 thoughts, Jim. One is flawed favorites. And then the other is more of, I called it Big East bummers, which we kind of talked about a lot of the Big East struggles. And I don't want to bang that drum too hard because I do think it's too early to declare the Big East overrated. But generally, in terms of the top, I think it was like 15 to 20 teams. I think we can agree, maybe we don't agree, that crop of teams of like really good, I would say, call it Final Four candidates, Kai. I think that pool is as big as it's ever been. At least it feels like it's as big as it's ever been. but all of those teams have flaws, and I do think this is one of the years where there's not a clear cut top tier, even though there are a lot. So point is, I think this year more than ever, there is a lot of very, very good teams, but I don't feel like there's a great team. And of the Auburns, Houston's, UConn's, Duke's, Arizona's, Kansas's, Alabama's, Texas Tech,
Gonzaga.
which one do you think might be the least flawed? Is my question. I think I'm trying to look at this. Which of all these teams' flaws, I think we can kind of go through and quickly identify one or two things. Like I try to think of which one of these teams has like the most forgivable flaw or fixable flaw from November to end of year.
Yeah, I do agree that there's a bigger pool of Final Four candidates. I still think there's a pretty clear elite like crop. Maybe it's a little bigger to your point than years past, but like Houston and Auburn, I think have very little flaws. Houston maybe a little bit like offensively. I think Gonzaga and UConn, very little flaws as well. Those four teams kind of stand out ahead of everybody. They are top four income. Duke, I would say Duke, but I think Shire's a bit of a flaw. Honestly, Jim, I don't want to put too much on him, but I wasn't impressed against Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't think Shire's going to get Duke to their maximum outcome, which is probably number one or number two in the entire country, but he's good enough to get them to like median, which is probably going to sit there top 3 to 6 all year, Matt. That seems reasonable. I don't think he's going to tank them, but yeah, you go through that 1 through 4 you mentioned, Kai. I've been mega impressed with Texas Tech so far.
Yeah,
Alabama's not in that top 4 because they haven't made threes yet this season, and maybe there's certainly some scabs to pick at with Alabama's results and just kind of makeup to me. I think people just went nuts in the offseason with them. But yeah, to Kai's point, all kinds of teams can make the Final Four. It's not like, oh, these top teams are just head and shoulders above. It's not 2015. It's not 2019.
I landed on Duke and Auburn with like the most, I guess, forgivable or fixable flaws. I mean, Houston might, you could argue, is the best team right now, but I still watch the point guard thing concerns me. I mean, Uzan's been good.
Their point guard situation is better than Duke's. I'm sorry, it is.
It is. Yeah, you're probably right. I guess it is. I just think Duke has more, talent to remedy that, but Houston probably has a better institutional system. All right, I'll throw Houston in there. That's fine. But like as I go through the rest of the teams, that like Gonzaga defensively, I know they're better, but still not great. I don't think Bama's defense is as good as it needs to be for them to be elite. I still have questions about Iowa State's offensive consistency. Kansas, we've talked about. Arizona and Tennessee, I think a little too inconsistent with how their styles play. And then Texas Tech, Texas Tech and Cincinnati are the two teams that are like, you know what? We haven't really talked about them in like that top tier, and I wonder if maybe we are in 2 weeks or so.
Texas Tech for sure. Cincy without Skillings might be a little tough to get there.
Yeah, Skillings is tough. I know they love him there.
Yep. And Carolina and St. John's are kind of these weird, like lurking, like that Carolina performance at Kansas was really impressive.
They didn't make
get
shots.
Down,
They came back,
punch, and then fight all the way back. And St. John's, I don't know. They haven't been challenged at all yet, but the defense looks as elite as I hoped it would. But the offense does have its flaws, Matt. So can they get up into that Texas Tech, Cincinnati group of the next tier? Maybe. I still think they can.
All right, fine. 3 teams in: Duke, Auburn, Houston. It was dumb to omit Houston.
There are 5 teams in the top 15 on both offense and defense: Auburn, Houston, UConn, Duke, Texas Tech.
Yeah. And maybe UConn's. I probably shouldn't doubt UConn, but I have watched them a couple of times, and it's a really good team, but it's just not the last 3-year UConn team. It just isn't. I think we can.
Yeah, they've like blown out their bye game foes, but it's been like kind of late extending, and in the first like 15 minutes, the team is sticking with them. I mean, they're scheduled to start the years. Ken Palm, 336, 342,
yeah, it's not just bye
354.
Games. It's bottom barrel bye games.
Yeah, they have one more at Commerce. I don't know why is Hurley starting like this?
Commerce. They got Eastern Shore after they play Memphis. It's 5 of their first 6. Surprising. He could schedule anybody he wants in the country. So
right.
I see
the artist formerly known as Texas A&M Commerce. We should probably introduce our
East Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
East Texas A&M. I see the other teams on Hurley's schedule. I understand it's going to get tougher, but still,
yes,
it's kind of weird to pepper that in.
It's just like I'm surprised they're not on the Kansas bye game schedule of all right, pick the 3 best mid majors in your region and play them instead of these like terrible ones. But that's neither here nor there. It's not really going to affect how you feel about UConn. Kai, what's your first thought?
North Florida, a wagon? The Ospreys, the Birds of Trey, got something cooking in Jacksonville. The only team in the country that's 4-0 against the spread currently, covering games by 16.5 points per game. Incredible. I previewed the A-Sun, and I tell you what, I didn't pick them in the top half of the league or top four or top five. They were picked eighth. I think in the media poll, a little bit higher, North Florida, a little more respect, but wins over South Carolina, wins over Georgia Tech. Their only loss is Georgia, and really they kind of hung in there and they came back to cover late. This team has major upside. Their three best players are underclassmen. Freshman Josh Harris, who on tape when I was doing my research, he looked like he was ready to play college basketball. He has that frame that like he's very, very strong. He's been a beast so far inside, beast in the glass. And their two sophomore guards, Jalen Smith, he's had a sky-high assist rate so far, point guard, and then Josiah Miles, do everything wing. With that kind of, we'll say youth, like development upside, absolutely a contender in the ASUN this year. And then shout out also to Liam Murphy, transfer from Columbia. He's shooting almost 62% from three so far, 16 for 26 from three. That's going to come down, but certainly a big driver of their success. And Driscoll has kind of done this before with Nate Litteris, a former Chuck South transfer, turning these guys who are kind of like, mid to nobodies on like kind of mid to nobody teams into real weapons on his squad because he recruits shooting, and that's what these guys can do. They can shoot the cover off the ball. So UNF in every game because they can shoot. Their defense looks slightly better this season. They are for real, I think.
Yeah, they're legit. Litteris Longwood, Kai,
Longwood, not Chuck South.
Minor collection there. Yeah, I mean, Columbia's already looking pretty darn good. If they allow grad students and Liam Murphy was still there sniping, that would certainly be helpful. The impressive thing for me with North Florida is that you think of Birds of Trey, bomb away from three. They're not like shooting 44% from deep as a team or something like that, like complete unsustainable splits. They're holding up on the glass. We talked about how they badly out rebounded South Carolina in the season opener, which was shocking. And they're taking away the 3-point line. Teams aren't making that many, and they're just making enough. Like they've got a sustainable blueprint so far. It isn't kind of fluky early shooting luck. That's what's really impressive for me with them.
Yeah, Mike White, thank you. Georgia's a coach, talked about after the game. He's like, yeah, they've changed. And Driscoll talked about over the summer. He's like, the new normal, we have to, I think the direct quote was trim the fat. And by fat, he meant all the complexity with his old system, both offensively and defensively. So they are still playing, obviously, the zone, but their offense is you're right, Jim, it's not just gun. Like they have some real athletes and guys who can get to the rim. And I wonder if they've caught some teams off guard, maybe that were sort of scouting off last year's tape, and then they kind of come at you with a little different look than you're expecting.
Old dogs.
But obviously, any sort of zone or weird curveball defensively, I think is going to play well early in the year. That's why coaches, you need to mix up defenses, especially early in the season. No one knows how to play against zone. People have no idea. It's insane to me how like lost you see some of these teams when like, oh, you go to a 1-3-1 or a 2-2-1 or like a delay press, and it's just total like for 3 possessions, you get like a stop on at least 2 of those every time. So. Shout out to Driscoll.
Old
Great
dogs
coach.
learn new tricks. Driscoll's 16th year, I think, at UNF. If the season ended today, best season in KenPom history for North Florida. How about that?
That's really impressive considering some of the talent they had. He's made only one tournament, but they've been really good. He's had a bunch of 21 seasons. Tip of the cap to the old dog, Matthew Driscoll. Yep. All right, fellas, my first thought, I'm going to make you rank mid-majors. We're going to stay in the mid-major world here. The top, there's really 2 groups I'm going to make you rank here, 1 through 4. First, we have Grand Canyon, McNeese, UC Irvine, and High Point, all clear favorites in their conferences. No doubt about that. Been fairly impressive so far. McNeese has taken a couple losses, but we know the talent that's there. Kai, how would you rank that group of 4?
Boy, that's tough. Gosh, I'll go Grand Canyon, Irvine, High Point, McNeese. I love High Point.
I like it.
I love High Point so much. Irvine might be 1. This is a good group, Jim. Really good.
It's really, these teams are, it's meant to be tough. It's a tough exercise. Matthew.
Grand Canyon 1, High Point 2, Irvine 3, McNeese 4. I can't believe McNeese is 4, but that's how I feel right now.
I'm with you. I think I'm with you, Matt. That's I think this is Russell Turner's best team at Irvine. He's playing Mr. Licton a lot more in the paint, and that was almost like the issue last year. Is he just played 15 minutes a game, put him at 25, and he's going to dominate. McNeese just hasn't come together quite yet. I still think they're going to roll through the Southland and be a problem for people. And look, they went to Alabama and got down 20 and fought all the way back to within 5 or 6. Like that most mid-major teams simply cannot do that. And McNeese was able to do that. So we've seen pretty solid performances from them. GCU gets Tyon Grant Foster back
Yeah.
tonight for the Arizona State matchup in the Footprint Center. They could kind of stake their claim to best mid-major in the country with a win there. Keep an eye out for that. The other group, Bradley, Liberty, Princeton, Louisiana Tech. 2 CUSA teams in here. We saw Louisiana Tech knock off UMass in New Jersey last night, or on Long Island. I think it might have been, was it New Jersey? I can't remember. Sorry. But in a randomly
Nassau.
located game, Nassau Coliseum.
Maybe.
Princeton, the preseason favorite in the Ivy. Bradley, preseason favorite in the MVC. They've looked solid thus far. Matthew, starting with you on this group.
Louisiana Tech is the best team of this group. We talked this last night. Princeton, Kai, I know you said they have issues. I don't think they have issues. I think they've struggled to start the year, and we probably overlooked the fact that Princeton got away with last season playing basically 5 guards / wings. Like they don't really have a true 5. That's what makes them so dangerous. But they do feel super easy to score against in the half court. And I wonder if teams last season just didn't quite figure out how to attack them, and now they're starting to solve that riddle. I'd go Louisiana Tech, then Liberty, then Princeton, then Bradley. Wow. Is that crazy to put Liberty above Princeton? Maybe it is, but you guys sold me on Liberty. Are you not? Don't back off your Liberty love. I'm there.
My wow was Bradley last. I think I would have Princeton last, actually.
I'm going the same as Matthew, actually. Princeton's not impressed me. Maybe Northeastern is good. Yeah, Bradley.
Bill Cohen.
Again, these teams are really close to each other. Bradley did get the doors blown off them against Washington State. Maybe that's not a big deal. I don't know. I think Louisiana Tech's been the most impressive team of this bunch for sure, and could be like a top 60-ish team.
Yeah, shout out to Louisiana Tech last night. The UMass win, they basically fouled out Bacho early in the first half. I mean, he got 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes, sat the rest of the 18 in the first half, and it didn't matter. Louisiana Tech was still the clear better team. Really, really impressive stuff there. That shows they have a little more depth. It's not super reliant on one star. Yeah, I'm moving Princeton to the last of this group. I think Devin Austin taking a leave away from the team is a real problem. They have 0 depth once again. They had none last year, but that remains the case. A little bit less shooting this year without Martini and Alaco. Both of those guys were fantastic last year. I think Princeton's a little more vulnerable in the Ivy, unfortunately. I don't know if Yale or Columbia is going to be one to take it from them. Brown losing Owusu and Nane for the year was.
I think it's Yale and maybe Cornell. I'll think Cornell. I mean, I know they got blown out by LaSalle, but hey, LaSalle beats everyone by 50 apparently.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Just real quick, surprising differences in the way these teams are ranked in Bart Torvik and KenPom. We talked about a little bit among ourselves and maybe a little publicly, KenPom being more reactionary to early results. Of all these teams so far, Irvine is ranked the highest in KenPom, ahead of Grand Canyon. Then Louisiana Tech is third to the point of them being the most impressive so far. And you got Princeton, Liberty, Bradley, High Point, Yale, Arkansas State, and then you finally get to McNeese. Like McNeese has actually dropped a decent amount for KenPom. And Bart Torvik is a little closer to, I think, preseason perception, maybe a little more stable to Pryor's Grand Canyon, McNeese 1-2. That's a majorly different McNeese ranking than KenPom. It's surprising to see them that disparate. And then you go Irvine, High Point, Bradley, Western Kentucky. What are they doing in there?
Good team.
Yeah.
They're Arkansas State. Western Kentucky still ahead of Louisiana Tech. That's surprising. And it takes a little while to finally get to Princeton in that one. Liberty also really low at Bart Torvik. I think eventually the Flames will rise up to rank. Okay. That is my mid-major exercise. We'll get into a little more high major stuff as we move through. Matthew, your second thought.
Let's stay with some mid-major My Guys. It's time.
There we go.
The My Guys series continues. I only have 5 names on this list so far, and one actually is not a mid-major guy. I just wanted to sort of call his name out. Didn't really fit with any sort of neat part of this podcast. But Devin Askew is is kind of back. Um, resurrected his career after he started at top 15 recruit, goes to let's see, Kentucky, and then goes to
Texas.
Texas, and then to Cal, correct? And
Yes.
then
Yes.
forgetting one more,
No,
No.
then Beach. He was 2 years at Cal.
and
This
now
is
he's at
fifth
Long
year.
Beach. So yeah, shouts to him. He looks really good. I'm not sure if anyone cares, but just sort of like the Perry Ellis guys who are still
He,
never graduating. He
he was terrible
still out
last
there
night.
doing it. He was bad last night.
Eight
He was really bad
turnovers,
last night.
62 already.
Had a good
Yeah.
start though. Had a good game against South Dakota State against the Jack Bunnies, but he was not good last night.
He actually might have another year of eligibility. If he
I
gets a
think he does have
medical
one
red
more
shirt
year.
for last year. That's insane. This guy is
Wow.
a cockroach. He's here forever.
Okay, actual players that I like. Here they are. Anthony Roy,
Yeah.
Green Bay. Shouts to Doug Gottlieb, got his first win last night as D1 basketball coach at Western Illinois against a very good coach. I think they've looked better than I thought, and they don't even have arguably their best, most talented player really playing it in Isaiah Miranda. So,
That might be for the better. From what you hear
yeah, we'll
behind the
see.
scenes, he might be a pot stirrer.
That's fine. Talented player though, Jim, and I think in the horizon that type of talent will play. So yeah, Anthony Roy. It's funny. I remember reading about him at New Mexico State. He was like really loved by fans. I'm like, this guy's a no one. Why do we care so much about Anthony Roy? And he could only play at home games, I think, for a year because he had some. I think he had like a misdemeanor, a felony related restriction. So like at home, he was out there gunning for the Aggies, and then on the road, it's like, oh, I guess Roy's going to. It's sort of like a Doug McDaniel thing at Michigan. But he's incredible. Like not just a shooter, like a shot maker, and he might, mess around and win Player of the Year in that conference. Maybe a bridge too far, but like legitimately, he's on that trajectory right now. I think there's not a ton of other good candidates, frankly.
Yeah, he's
And
averaging
that's
at like 30 points a game, and he's
30 plus. Yeah,
56% from three and 92 from two and 90 from the line. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
another dominant early mid-major breakout is Oscar Clough for South Dakota State. That team is a bunch of freshmen, and I didn't think they'd be very good. They have one returner back, Moores on the perimeter, but the Clough could very easily win Player of the Year out of nowhere in that conference. 7-footer from Washington State, and if you start for a top, Jim, you don't sound as convinced.
No, it just wasn't out of nowhere. I think he was.
Yeah,
I
guess
I picked him like co-player of the year in my
yeah.
preseason
Okay,
preview.
okay. I forgot that he was like a legit starter for Washington State because they had all those other guys that sort of distract you uh, from him. But he is awesome, and it's just a very quick identity shift for the Jack Bunnies in a league that's frankly just not that good. As I've gone through sort of the Summit and Big Sky in more detail, I think that's I'm yearning for more in those leagues, unfortunately. And then guard tandem here. I know we've talked about Money Williams before, and he's not 100% healthy, but I think he's going to be really special for Montana. I will be tuning into some of those Big Sky contests later in the season when he is healthy. I know our guy Gribbs has mentioned him as a potential fringe pro type prospect. I think he's a year younger than his age, so he's a super, super young dude for a sophomore.
He had 30 of their 57 at Tennessee last
at Tennessee, and they were hanging in for a little bit, and then Tennessee did the fork to the Grizz. But I think he's a real player. I think he's going to get a big old bag of money to play somewhere big next season. Maybe in
big old bag of
Tennessee.
what? A big old bag of money?
Money.
There you go.
And then oh no, there's no money parallel. The last guy is Adam Bud Clark for Merrimack, another cool nickname. They got some buzz when they beat Vermont early on. Merrimack first year in the MAAC as they continue to climb the totem pole. He is a super steel machine, plays a ton of defense, got a cool swagger to him, little guard, tough shot maker. If they make the tournament out of the MAAC, and I think the MAAC is as open as any league with Iona sort of looking shoddy early, you could easily see Merrimack winning that conference tournament. And I think guys like Bud Clark, or a guy like Bud Clark would be a fun darling Cinderella fan favorite. So just some guards I'm keeping my eye on. I'll get to the bigs. I'm sorry, Clough is an outlier in that card, but I'll try and get more bigs my next batch next week.
Merrimack is the current highest rated team in KenPom in the MAAC. A little bit.
Oh yeah, they did
surprising
overtake.
Took down Vermont.
And shout out to the chat. I know he's got an awesome nickname already, and Bud, but Adam Bud Clark, I like calling him ABC. It's easy as
ABC.
ABC when he's
Nice.
out there, man. All right, Kai, your second thought.
Yes, my second thought. Jim, you mentioned the chat. It's not. Oh, now it's loading. They've been chatting the whole time. I love the chat. Good to see the
Yeah.
chat. My second thought is Georgetown. I watched the entire Fairfield game for some reason. I had money on it, but I do have some takes as a
Yeah,
result.
for some reason.
As a result, this team is way too talented to be squeaking by Lehigh and Fairfield. They're 0-2 against the spread, -5 cover margin. Why? Is it an Ed Cooley thing? I don't know yet. Let me go down the line a little bit. Freshman center Thomas Sorber is like dark horse All American good. If this team was to finish top 5 in the Big East, for instance, he would get looks for All American. I think he is that good. His touch is unreal. He blocks shots, he finishes. This is his stat line right now: 22.5 points per game, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 steals. It's a 130 rating on a nearly 30% usage. And he does everything on the floor. It's like shocking how good this guy is. Now, I know they've played Fairfield. I know it was Fairfield. Any good player could look good against them, but he really is for real. The hype is warranted on Thomas Sorber. On the flip side, Malik Mack has not looked good in the slightest through 2 games. Sub 88 rating against poor competition is bad news bears for the Hoyas. I told you this was not the Prince that was promised. I'm not going to do a victory lap totally for the first 2 games here, but if he's this level heading in the Big East play, there's just no real hope for the Hoyas, I think, in that conference, even with how bad it's looked. Peavy was a great ad, though. He's looked great on both ends. Epps is still Epps. You're going to get some good games, bad games. So looking forward, I think this team still finishes bottom 3 in the Big East. I still probably lean bottom 2. I know Seton Hall's looked really bad. I know Providence has looked bad. DePaul is still DePaul. But I still think if you can't get by Fairfield and Lehigh, even with this talent, I think something is just kind of a miss. Maybe it's chemistry between the players. Maybe they need more time to gel. That could definitely be it. The game against Notre Dame on Saturday will be very telling. KenPom has Georgetown as a favorite.
Yeah, I hope
The
that's the
market
line.
won't.
Yeah. Well, or it won't last long if it opens that way. I mean, yeah, Sorber's looked awesome. Lehigh has maybe the worst front court in mid-major. I mean, they have just no bodies. Like they're starting a freshman that probably doesn't belong there. But yeah, they've looked a little bit better. They've at least won their bye games, which is more than
Right.
Yeah.
some of
Correct.
their
They've
other Big
won the
East
bye
competition can
games.
say. Again, yeah, I'm not crowning them. I'm not crowning them yet. I am very much still wait and see with the Hoyas.
Hi, rank the following teams: Georgetown, Villanova, Butler, Seton Hall. Big East bummers to start the year.
Gosh, that's tough. I think Villanova might be circling the drain. Butler 1, Nova
Yeah, I
Nova
put
2,
Butler 1 begrudgingly.
Nova 2, Hall 3, Georgetown 4 right now.
I have Seton Hall below Georgetown, but it's basically 3A, 3B. It's funny that the fact that you thought they were talented. I actually haven't seen them play this year, Georgetown. So I don't want
They
to
have
comment
real
with
talent.
too much.
At least
They
it
have,
stood out
that impresses me, I guess. I thought talent was actually kind of a question mark for that team in terms of depth. I mean, I had a couple talented pieces, but they look talented.
Now,
That's
this,
at least encouraging.
in comparison to Fairfield, to be fair, who is
Yeah.
maybe one of the least talented teams I've watched, but they scrapped and they hung in there and they covered. Yeah, the Seton Hall stuff, I don't think Hofstra's a bad loss necessarily, to be honest.
No, I don't either.
Seton Hall's defense is still very much for real. Their opponents have scored like 50 points a game, so I'm not totally concerned, but I am concerned a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My second thought is
Yes.
shout out to St. Mary's, who is not going anywhere. They do not look the same as the last couple of years, Matthew. The defense first teams. What did Kyle Bowen say? Like gritty, not
Pretty,
pretty.
not pretty.
Yeah, this team's a lot prettier.
Pretty
Not
and
quite as gritty.
Yeah, not quite as gritty.
Marcellionis is running the show, returning player of the year in the conference, and then the young guards, Jordan Ross, Mikey Lewis, they're giving them some actual shot making. Paulius Morauskas is a total mismatch beast at forward. He's strong. He can power through smaller defenders, or he can get around slower ones. He has been a revelation after transferring from Arizona. And then up front, you've got the two-headed center monster, Harry Wessels, Mitchell Saxon. Saxon struggled a little bit with foul trouble so far, but that doesn't matter when you have Wessels, the 7 foot, 275 pounder that can move, block shots, dominate the glass. This team's got 6 to 7 pieces, probably 7. That's all you need for Randy
Yep.
Bennett to make them very, very competent. It's just a different kind of competent. They're much better offensively than we've seen. A little leakier on defense, but they can score. It's like the 2016 to 2020 teams that had the deadly dual point guards and could get up and down and just spread the floor. That's how St. Mary's is going to win, and they're going to stay hyper competitive as a result.
Yeah, the depth is where I would be like a little bit worried because I do feel like they might be a guy or two short.
Yeah.
They were able to withstand that injury to Jefferson last season because they had some guys at the ready. But this year, a key injury at a key cornerstone piece could be tough. But right now, I love it, right? Just like the way Lewis and Ross are kind of coming into like those, complementary score roles where Gus doesn't have to score. He can just find those guys. He can run the pick and roll stuff, and they can play through Paulinus inside or Paulius inside. And Jim, our boy Wessels looks kind of solid, like making layups.
Oh, he's more
Good.
than solid. That guy rocks.
Yeah, he
I'm
rocks. I know. I'm
so
tired
high
that
on
he was.
him.
I'm sick. He was an afterthought last season, and maybe Ashton Hardaway figures it out. I mean, guys got played at Memphis. I think he'll be a good role player in time. So
I
yeah, the
don't.
Gales are closer to the Zags than I thought.
I think they're missing a guy is because Ashton Hardaway isn't good.
Is not good
That's,
yet. Yeah,
that's
or
the
it just
problem.
isn't good. Maybe.
They're
Yeah,
good every
fair.
year, Matthew. They're good every year.
Yeah.
St. Mary's.
Yeah, just yeah, that's just hey, St. Mary's isn't going anywhere. That's the thought. Matthew, number 3 for you.
It was just gonna be the Big East bummer thing. That was my thought. I don't want to beat that into the draw. The premise was sort of the 4 teams that we talked about. Do we have any other Big East thoughts though? Can we talk about the top of the totem pole in the Big East? Let's flip that real quick, maybe. UConn, St. John's, Marquette, and
Creighton.
I think
Creighton.
generally
and
all of them have
Creighton.
not looked awesome. Like I know UConn's extended late. Marquette needed a late surge to beat George Mason. Did not look that good against Central Michigan outside of one run in the first half. St. John's has looked kind of just check the box. Hasn't been that great. Creighton has not been all that good either. I don't know. I think it's not this like emphatic non-conference performance that they probably wanted or needed after last year's 3 teams in the tournament. It's Kai. I feel like they'll probably just get their 5 and maybe not. I don't know. Maybe the teams aren't as great at the top as we thought they might be.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still say UConn is an elite title contender for sure. But yeah, Marquette, they've definitely looked worse than I thought. Hey, Xavier, man. Xavier has struggled quite a bit as well.
Yes, good point.
I think they'll get back. The offense is finally starting to look a little bit more human, or superhuman, we'll say. But I still need to see more from them. Those top 5 teams are still pretty locky, in my opinion, to make the tournament.
I agree. I mean, St. John's and Marquette have been the 2 that have been sneaky impressive to me in a sense. Like St. John's has not played well for probably 40 minutes and they've still won every game by 20. Marquette as well, just the way they took Stony Brook to ripped into shreds, and they had that late fork against George Mason. They got some young pieces too coming up. I know the Royce Parham kid's got a lot of hype. He looks like a real piece in maybe a couple of months. And Ben Gold is playing a lot more defense. And I swear, what, you're shaking your head?
I'm just laughing at the Royce Parham kid. Who are you? Are you a Big J?
Yeah,
The Royce Parham kid.
the Royce Parham kid. I like saying kid. I don't agree with you guys. I'm old now, and I like embracing how old I am, and so I like to talk down to these youngsters.
You can say like that kid,
youth.
but don't say the Royce Parham kid. Just say Royce
Just
Parham.
say, okay, 1 and 2. Royce Parham, the young man.
The Royce Parham kid, the general. No, you just said his first and last name.
It's like the National Basketball
You're specific.
Association.
So Marquette and St. John's are the 2. I'm like, okay, I think they could usurp UConn. One of those 2 can usurp UConn or Creighton. I think I'm sold.
All right.
Yeah, no one's touching UConn, fellas.
Yep,
They're winning the league easily.
Let's not do this.
Yeah.
Let's not doubt them and have them just be.
I'm gonna doubt them
complete
this year.
juggernaut
I'm gonna go back to the well.
They'll win the league
I'll
by-
be the fire that Hurley needs. I'll be the bulletin board material that team needs this year.
Plus, they'll win the league by at least 2 games, maybe 3.
Ooh.
I will.
All right,
I will
I'll write
say
that
they
down
win
as
it
a
by 2.
board bet.
Say they win it by 2.
Okay. My last thought, or sorry, Jim, are you before me? I forgot.
No, you're up. You're up.
Just a small thought. It's a small gripe on reviews. We're still doing this, huh? Kentucky Duke, best game of the year in the early season so far, was ruined by the in-game reviews. We had multiple in-game reviews in the final 2 minutes. There has to be a better system. There just has to be in college basketball. Or ban the reviews altogether. I've said it a million times in this podcast. Human error is part of the game. I don't get reviews in my pickup league. I don't. These guys don't have reviews in high school or AAU. It just ruins the flow for both the teams and especially the fan experience. If you're trying to sell the sport of college basketball, let's get this out of the game. Refs are going to make mistakes, and especially when you zoom in on these like hyper, like the ball that went off Cooper Flag, for instance, that play gets called out on the other team 9 times out of or 100 times out of 100. If you zoom in and you see the tip by Flag, yes, that probably actually happened, but it never gets called that way unless you zoom in, hyper focused, and we're only doing this in the last 2 minutes. So you're telling me that the first 38 minutes of the game don't matter? We don't need to do reviews, but the last 2 minutes, for some reason, we need to slow down the game, even in blowouts, even when there's not a consequence to the play. We're still going to the monitor. It drives me absolutely nuts.
One coach's challenge, give them a second if they win.
Coach's challenge.
That's it. That's it. No, nothing else gets reviewed.
Let's also tell the players real quick that you can only review plays under 2 minutes, because I have seen players do this
every time they do
every
the review
single
with 10
time.
minutes left
Every
in the
play I
game.
disagree with is this, and it's like I'm twirling my finger for the podcast folks.
Yep.
It's the last 2 minutes, and it's still a bad rule. Matthew, sorry.
Yeah, I want to see the NBA rule adoption where you actually make people, you incentivize players to be more honest, right? As what you just mentioned, Jim. Like, you can't just like say, "Oh, coach, it was off hit." And it's like, okay, well, you need to tell me what it is. If I'm going to use a challenge here, we're going to lose a timeout or something.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
I like something like that.
Everything, even if it's like we all saw it, we know who it's off. Like the Cooper Flag in the corner where he just dribbled it on the baseline. That was a minute and a half review. Like I knew what it was immediately live. Why are we looking at that? It can't be just a coach half-ass requests it, so everything gets reviewed. That can't be how it is. It's a challenge. Give them a second if they win. That's it.
What I hate the most though is the announcers who get really into the review process.
Like, call on the court was off.
And like they show the replay like 25 times because the reviews take 20 minutes as we just discussed. Yes. And then the announcers are really dissecting it and like really get into it. And it's just like, hold on, whoa, zoom out here. This whole process is dumb. You need to have some awareness and call out the stupidity of the slothy process that we have right now. So announcers are also have some stop engaging this, announcers. Quit trying to be like, you get like when the ref comes over to the table, you get so excited to hear what he tells you, so you get to tell the world what the call is. Like, no one cares. It's all a big dog and pony show. I hate it.
Let's get better announcers. Put us on a freaking broadcast. A lot of these guys are horrible. I played college basketball.
I think ESPN Plus would have us. I think they'd have us.
You're not qualified to be an announcer if you've played a little bit of college basketball. Some of these guys are terrible. Eric Devendorf is fantastic, though. He's a great announcer. I was shocked. Great color commentator.
The Dorf, yeah, he's good.
I was hoping we get some positivity out of it.
Claps, Eric Devendorf, man. I was really impressed by him on the color mic. Yep. All right, Jim.
All right, my final thought is undefeated but fading fast. The teams that just really aren't playing that well early on, despite not taking that bye game loss. And no, I didn't put Georgetown in here because I didn't think they had high expectations. But USC, the 3-0, but they're down to 67th. They're really lacking some gritty defense, interior rim protection, rebounding. It's Josh Cohen and a bunch of wings. We sort of knew this coming in. Not really that surprising. Providence, we've harped on them a little bit, but they can't score. The offense is a pain. Like going down to the wire with Hampton, you can't do that. Hampton lost to Bowie State in preseason. They got blown out by George Washington. Providence, you got to figure it out. Virginia Tech, 3-0, but down to 94th. Arch rival Virginia, 2-0, but down to 96th in Ken Palm. Both these teams, I think, are on big time worry watch. Maybe not panic yet, but the talent level, the overall just upside, not really there for either team. Virginia versus Villanova is a very funny game coming up this weekend. The Discord is calling it the Ryan Odom Bowl, or whichever one wins gets Ryan Odom after the season, or maybe whichever one loses gets Ryan Odom to coach. VCU, rocket ship right now. And then Syracuse, guys, 2-0, but down to 101st in Ken Palm. They nearly lost to Colgate, as they pretty much do every year. Sometimes they actually lose. Defense is a complete mess. Just a little board bet update. Stanford now 30 spots ahead of Syracuse. Old Jimbo had Stanford versus Syracuse in a board bet. It's early, boys, but
did I take Syracuse?
I'm taking you did. You and Matt both.
Oh, that makes sense. I've bet against Stanford a couple times. That was really stupid. I'm bumping that team up for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to take not a victory lap. I'm taking a victory like quarter lap, victory 2-step stroll. But all those teams, I think they're at least have to be concerned to maybe like really panicking. So just keep an eye on them. I think once they start playing real competition, we're going to see like, oh yeah, it's what they've been showing is bad, and it's starting to come out in a bigger stage.
Jim, three ACC teams. The bottom of the ACC is bad. I don't mean like the bottom four. I mean the bottom like eight. This is still like the same old league, man. It's Duke, it's then North Carolina, and then it's kind of everybody else. With slight apologies to Pitt, Clemson, Miami, Louisville will get up there, Matt. Don't worry. But I think Virginia Tech's terrible. I think Virginia could be terrible. Syracuse,
Boston College is horrible.
Boston College could be the worst Power 5 team in the country.
Cal just got blown out at Vanderbilt.
Was not impressive. No,
I'm not even convinced NC State's very good this year.
I don't think NC State's that
Nor
good.
am I.
Yeah. Florida State's bad.
Stanford is now top half of the league for Ken Palm, and they're 70th.
Yep.
Wake Forest is 4-0, but they've fallen to 74th. Like they could be in this group of undefeated but fading. I just gave them a little credit because they actually beat a real team in Michigan. It hasn't looked good. It's going to be the same old story where we get to March or February, and it's like, why does the ACC only have 5 teams in bracketology?
Who's making the Final Four?
Yeah,
Stanford.
exactly. Stanford to the Final Four. We love it. Kyle Smith. Let's do it. Just that's that. I believe that will be a thought in like mid-December or something of like, is the ACC actually, I don't know. No ACC Big Ten Challenge this year to maybe rack up some wins. We'll see. All right. That's it for 3-man thoughts, guys.
I'm in on Florida State. Sorry. Florida State. I'm in. Keep an eye out.
What does mean in this context?
Maybe top 5 of ACC.
Oh,
too high.
Gosh.
Top 7.
No.
Okay, Duke, UNC, Pitt, Clemson, Miami. Okay, sorry, that's 5. Okay, never mind. SMU's better. Louisville's better. And then after, like, Wake, sorry. Okay, never mind. Take retracted. Take revised. I like Florida State this year.
Yeah, they can be 9th in the ACC. Sure. They probably have one of the best players of anybody in that group, Watkins.
Yeah, Watkins is great.
Maybe the best.
Their identity is weird, colossal. They're second in average height. When have we seen that before for a Leonard Hamilton team?
Every year.
Oh, every year. All right. That's it for 3-man thoughts. Let's get to a quick section of previews. Friday, great slate. 4 games we're going to talk about quick. Alabama at Purdue, Arizona at Wisconsin, Ohio State at Texas A&M, and Marquette at Maryland. Wow. Starting with Alabama at Purdue. Guys, really in these first 2, the road team is going to be so popular among talking heads. Like the hyped play fast team, Alabama, at the Big Ten team that has looked kind of marginal so far. But Alabama sneakily hasn't looked that great either. They're still trying to figure out lineups. No young blood has hurt the shooting. They really haven't made shots the last 2 games. Kai, the Boilermakers haven't looked great either, but they have Braden Smith. They have Trey Kaufman-Renn. Nice lineup bookends. Mm-hmm. Can they take down the Crimson Tide at Mackey?
Boy, toss-up, I think. I don't expect the market to bet Purdue. Yeah, I expect them to bet Alabama, Jim, to your point. But I'll probably swing back on Purdue. First of all, Mackey is an incredible environment. They're going to be up for this game. One of the best home courts in the country, for sure. I worry about the athleticism disparity. Now, like, guys like, Jakari Harris, for instance, playing more for Purdue, I think that definitely helps. But, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, we've seen them struggle at times against athleticism. I think Alabama has some real struggles, but I still think they're incredibly dangerous and a very scary team to bet against because they are so dynamic. It's a toss-up for me, Matt. It's going to depend what the line is in terms of where I actually lean on the spread.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's a weird matchup. It really is. Like, very, very interesting. I think it'll be a fun chess match as a basketball nerd to watch. I think Alabama wins. Partially coming out of the Yale game for Purdue, when Yale like actually attacked them in the post, like inside, like to see Yale trying to pick on that. Like, Purdue obviously has a ton of size, but Yale had real success scoring in the paint against Purdue. Purdue had to make a ton of shots to get margin late in that game. That was a little concerning. Now, I know Alabama was a different matchup than Yale, and maybe you could argue Purdue could cross match more effectively on offense against Alabama's lack of true size. But man, Cliff's kind of a game changer this year. I think this Alabama team is pretty equipped to go into MAC and get a win, unlike the last 5 years of Bama teams.
Yeah, this would have been really fun last year, the Edey versus the 5-out Alabama, but they're both a little bit more conventional this year. So we'll see how that winds up working for an actual head-to-head matchup. To Kai's point, Purdue's young guards looked okay. They got a much better game from Heidi and Colvin against Yale. but no Jacobson, I think hurts. Just
Yeah.
not having that shot blocking presence. They're a little less stout inside. A broken leg that really stinks. And yes, shout out to 1 HP in the chat. Fletcher Lawyer, my doppelganger, my guy. Um, yeah, I think Alabama's going to win. I do think that popular take will work out there. The athleticism will bug Braden Smith just a little bit too much. Okay, next game. Arizona headed to Wisconsin. Badgers have been just humming along, nice and solid so far. They are not one of the teams that's looked bad in bye games. They've mostly taken care of business here. John Tonje, healthy. Max Klesmit making shots. John Blackwell looking good. Matt, go to you here. Arizona, the regular season juggernaut, now playing the return game. Wisconsin actually went out to Tucson last year. Is Arizona as for real as they've looked in their first couple games? Can they get a win at the Kohl Center?
I am a much bigger believer in Arizona than Wisconsin, but Jim, I trust your call it your buzzcut Badger radar, your buzzdar more than my own. And I do think Wisconsin, at least from the little I've watched, has been a little bit more impressive than I thought. And obviously at home with that revenge angle at the Kohl Center, game maybe probably plays to a slower tempo, as we've seen Arizona notoriously of all these fast teams really does not play well. Again, we'll see how this new rendition looks. I think their guards have been awesome, Kai. Maybe better to play in a half court game, but we haven't seen it yet from Arizona, right? We don't have no idea what that's going to look like. Tenderly in Wisconsin, just on this, the revenge home court cross country type thing. And, maybe it's a 13 of 26 from three for the Badgers. That sadly, that's where I lean. I want to see Arizona take care of business here. I don't think Wisconsin's very good, and I want to be proven right on that. But so far, they've looked decent.
I mean, I think Wisconsin's good still because they're good every year. I don't think
They're always good. Just
system.
how good, right?
I think Arizona is like double amount of talent as Wisconsin. Like, I think it's a pretty good mismatch in terms of that standpoint. Now, Arizona has not played a good team yet. I don't think Wisconsin has, I suppose, depending on what you think of Northern Kentucky and App State. But I think Arizona kind of runs them a little bit, Jim. I could get up to double digits. I think it's way too much firepower.
Yeah. Wisconsin hasn't played Northern Kentucky. They played Montana State. Montana State.
Oh, who played? Who am I thinking of? Doesn't matter.
But I think Wisconsin wins. I think Matt's point about pace is the big one for me. You force Arizona to play in the half court. They get a little bit more frustrated. This could be the Caleb Love shoot him out of the game type of performance on the road. Perhaps he goes nuts like he did at Oregon, but I think he's just better in transition, and Wisconsin's not really going to let him run. They're 331st in average possession length on defense. That's some part of it is due to their competition, but they're going to force Arizona to play slow, and that's worrisome.
You see Wisconsin wins, Jim?
What?
Did you say Wisconsin wins?
I did. Yes.
Wow. Holy moly.
Badge. Home dog,
Wow.
baby.
Optimistic Jim about Wisconsin. No way.
Yeah, I just like the spot in the matchup. I think you can slow Arizona down. They've got some issues, and they haven't played anybody yet. They've played two teams that have flown all the way across the country and have beaten.
I saw Evan Maya has his pace adjusted ranking, so you can kind of see which teams play better in slower or faster paced games, which very prone to noise. I'm going to look at last year, not this year, but Arizona was fifth in terms of teams that skew better in faster games, worse in slower games. So I think kind of some data evidence to show that if that trend holds this year, pretty big edge to Wisconsin.
That adds up. All right, next on the slate, Ohio State at Texas A&M. Pretty excited for Ohio State here because they have looked really good early. John Mobley doesn't miss threes, apparently. That's a nice freshman to add. You guys shooting like 88% from three, I think, so far. But they took care of business at home in a bye game. They obviously beat Texas in Vegas on opening night. Up to, in the top 20 at Ken Palm. Kai, can they go to A&M? I have a decided lean in this game. Curious what you think.
Yeah, I've been very impressed by Ohio State. I definitely bumped them up. I do not think Ohio State's a top 15 team, what they're currently ranked in Ken Palm. So I think they're a little bit overvalued. A&M, I think, is a weird squad. I think I want to say they play up more to better competition. They play to their competition quite a bit. The UCF loss was really disappointing. But I still think this is a very, very old team, a very good team, and one that I think will be hyper motivated to win this game. I lean towards A&M ever so slightly. I probably will not bet this game.
Agree. Ohio State's been better than I thought from the little I've watched. Defensively, I still have real concerns, which have not really been exposed yet in who they played this season. I think A&M with their rim pressure, I think they're going to really put a ton of strain on that front line, which is skilled. but not exactly gritty. I'll say not to call them. I'm not saying Ohio State's soft up front, but they're probably softer than A&M, and that's where A&M I think can pick on them.
Yeah, I think A&M wins by 10. I think
Easy.
they
Okay, yeah, I
convincing
can see that.
performance. Ohio State's made 48% of the threes. Their opponents have
On
made 20.
fire.
Like there is regression coming there two-way for the Buckeyes. Maybe A&M's not the team to really deliver that in terms of making threes, but at least defending it, they're going to give up a bunch. And if Ohio State isn't as hot, they're going to struggle to score. And yeah, I'm with Matt. I think A&M just owns the paint, owns the rim,
Glass.
physicality,
Yeah.
kind of tons of offensive rebounds. I think A&M takes care of business there to bounce back from that initial season opening loss against UCF. Final matchup here, Marquette and Maryland.
Hmm.
Good test for both these teams. Maryland has looked really, really good. The offense is actually giving them enough juice to cover bigger spreads. Marquette, obviously, Cam Jones, a star. Kai, did you see the shit talking in the press conference? Derek Queen calling out Ben Gold.
Yeah. What did he say?
I didn't
Do
see
they know each
exactly,
other?
but I don't know if they know each
Why
other. It
would
would
you
be
call
kind of
out Ben
bizarre if they
Gold?
do. Yeah, really, really
Uh,
surprising.
I did not see what he said. No, that's funny. Yeah, Maryland. You've beaten Manhattan, Mount St. Mary's, and Florida A&M. None of these teams are good. So
These
I
teams are
I
terrible.
take away 0 from that. Marquette has struggled against George Mason. Well, I guess they ended up winning by 20, but they did struggle for a bit. Central Michigan might be good. I don't know. Look, you give me +3 on the road for Marquette, I will probably take Marquette. I think they're still the better team in Maryland. I think it'll be kind of an ugly game, maybe more defensively skewed game. I worry a little bit about Maryland's advantage inside for sure against Ben Gold, to not to pile on Ben Gold a little bit, but I think Marquette has enough positional size to be just fine everywhere else. Lean towards Marquette.
Yeah, Willard said they're going to try and like they need to get
Bully ball.
inside and yeah, and do some with Juju and Derek Quink, your boy Juju. You gotta call him. That's what they call Juju Reese, by
I
the
will
way.
not call him Juju. I'll call
Okay.
him Julian Reese.
Um. So if they get Juju his touches, Jim, I do like Maryland. I just know Maryland can handle the ball pressure of Marquette, and I know Shaka's ball pressure hasn't been as feverish as it has been. I think they're trying to be a little smarter about it, not overly gamble. But I think this is a game where if you're going to really lean into it, try and bother. The guards are good for Maryland, but I think not bulletproof.
But you
I would try and lean into some pressure from if you're Marquette here.
you call Gillespie better than Jameer Young.
I know they need a second ball handler though, a guy who trusts. And Gillespie, I love him, but he hasn't faced this type of a pressure cooker yet.
No, not even a little bit. Chase Ross
No,
and Stevie Mitchell are like maybe
yeah,
the
I mean,
best ball
terrifying.
pressure tandem in high major. I say that without looking at the rest of them, but
I'm thinking
those two
too, but
guys are like horrifying. Ross he's also built like a tank, and Mitchell's added strength, so those two can really get into you. Maryland has played through Derek Queen a little bit more, like top of the key, kind of let him facilitate. He's a good passer. Didn't really get that chance all the time on Montverde because they had so much skill. So maybe that helps deconstruct the pressure of what Marquette's trying to throw out there. But I'm kind of leaning Marquette here. I just think the guard's a little better. They haven't played their best ball yet. Kai, you mentioned beating George Mason by 19. They were up 5
Yeah,
with 4
right.
minutes left.
Mhm.
It was a
That's not a bad
classic
team
turbo
though.
fork.
My point is George Mason,
No.
I think, is still a really good team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes,
So I think it's more like Maryland's going to have a whoa. This team is so much better than what we played so far.
Yeah.
And I think Marquette goes and steals a win on the road there from the Big Ten. So something positive about the Big East to close the podcast from me. Kai, back to you for reviews, and then I'll close it out.
All right, we do have 2 reviews today on the podcast. Thank you so much as I write down the timestamp for my own ease. Let's do it. John from St. Louis says, well done. Great show from informative guys who explain bets while tying it into the overall season narrative. Enjoyable.
Yeah.
Fantastic review.
All right.
Love that,
Thank you,
John
John
St.
from
Louis. Thank you, John.
STL. Yeah.
Excellent podcast, says GMart244. Listen to every episode. Love these guys. Oh, high praise. Just finished last episode. Just wanted to let you guys know, since you were concerned with Nelly Davis in the Kansas exhibition, he actually had a little hand injury and had to miss a few weeks of practice. So glad to hear he finally got to emerge in the win. Great pod. Love you guys. Fantastic. Yes, good. We were concerned about Nelly. I'm glad to hear personally that it was injury related and not other related, that he was kind of getting back into it slowly. But yes, it appears he's kind of full go now.
he didn't look great
Yeah.
last night. Their best player is Big Z.
It's, Bridge too
I'm not
far.
going to go that
I
far.
agree with that.
He Big Z's awesome. Big Z drains threes now. I might be reaching there. I think Big Z is like amazing, and I'm really bummed that Davis doesn't feel like, I don't know. I wanted him to be the guy, and he's just not the guy right now. Again, probably
He,
rusty. He's still hurt. We'll see.
he had the best game last night, Matt. I'll give you that one. But he also was horrible against Baylor. Just horrible.
Yeah,
He
Big
was bad
Z's
against
playing
Baylor.
20 minutes a game. Their best player might be Fland.
Yeah,
Fland
but
Yeah.
he got
make
hurt
the
by the way
floor.
last night. That did an ankle. Keep an eye on that, folks.
Yeah, that's the
Tierra,
problem.
man. Tierra's been awesome too.
Tierra's been good too.
Joe's been really good. I think Adu left the game last night with injury too. This team only has 9 scholarship players that matter by design. That's what Calipari
Yeah.
was going for.
Mhm.
So yeah, they could be a little shorthanded going forward.
All right, that does it for reviews, guys. Thank you for leaving those 5 stars. Hooray!
Yeah. We love them. Leave reviews if you're listening. We love to read those and ask a question if you feel so inclined. That's it though for this week's pod. Got to let everybody get off to their big days ahead. Thursday on the docket. Great game, great day of basketball, great night of basketball ahead of us tomorrow on Friday. So folks, cancel your plans, stay in, watch hoops. Thank you for tuning in this week of Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. We'll have a live show Saturday morning on this YouTube channel, so check that out. Talking best bets for the day.